Let's face it, getting older sucks. Getting older in the age of social media is even worse. Do you hate it when people tell you to age gracefully? Do you want to know how to live your best life at any age? Well, so do we. First rule, don't call me ma'am. Now, here's Jodi Miller.
Hey everybody, welcome to Don't Call Me Ma'am. I'm Jodi Miller, and don't fucking call me ma'am. Today, I am beyond excited. And I know I say that about every guest, but like, I really mean it this time. Sorry, past guests. No, I mean, I'm excited about all my guests, but I'm so excited because there are so many things going on in the world and in the universe. And I've wanted to have this amazing woman on my podcast for so long. She's an intuitive astrologer and a spiritual teacher. She is also a kick-ass woman, a fellow Taurian, so right there, bulls. And she understands the struggle of having naturally curly hair. Put your hands together right now, and I know you're not driving because I mean, where are you going? Put your hands together right now for the amazing Danielle Paige. Woo!
Oh my God. Thank you so much. I'm already dying. Like my face, my cheekbones hurt from smiling already from just our conversation. So I love
it.
this.
I already love that. So I'm so excited. I obviously, stalked you. It's what we do. I obviously
Really, we all do that.
I know you can't help it. You're like, let me find more about this person. Oh, let me find everything about this person. Oh, look what you did 5 years ago. Amazing. But I mean, so I read a lot about your journey, and I'd love for you to share your journey of how you became, like a spiritual teacher and an intuitive astrologer. I mean, here's the thing. We all grew up, with the like, what's your sign? What's your sign? Oh my God, you're such a Taurus. You're such a Scorpio. And like any guy you say that to is like, oh, that's not even real. And then like every woman has to like band together and like, So please, would you please obviously share with the listeners how you got into this and, made an amazing career out of it.
Thank you. That's so funny. It's true. Every guy's like, it's not real. And I'm like, oh, out. Next.
I mean, honestly, how many times must you hear that? Especially like, do you ever get that on a date or no?
Oh yeah, I get that on a date. And then I'm like, actually, so you should know I am a professional astrologer. Is that your real job? And then they put out their hand. They put out their hand like I'm a palm reader.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, actually, palm reading's amazing, but that's not what I do. I don't know. But then sometimes I actually make things up and I'm like, oh, no. Oh, no. I do that now. Because if they're going to put their palm out when I tell them I'm an astrologer, I'm going to make something up.
That's amazing. Oh my God. That's just like one of the best things. Okay.
So yeah, do that to people. It'll be great.
I will. I usually look, if I don't want to see a person again, I just let him know that I have a cat and he's immediately, it's like the same thing. He's like, oh God, I gotta go.
I know. So, I mean, I wanted a dog. I couldn't get a dog because I'm gone too much before all this.
Right.
But everyone's like, get a cat. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm an astrologer. Yes. I work with the spiritual realm, and now I have a cat. I'm winning. I'm definitely a catch right now.
Yep. That's that's
exactly. A little too much. It was a little too cliche, So, how I got in this.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely didn't have any plans of being an astrologer when I was little.
Right.
I didn't grow up being like, oh, I want to, do this. Although I was into space, but a lot of kids are into space.
Right. Absolutely. I was too. I thought it was just, the unknown. Yeah.
Right. So basically up until I was 30, I had no idea what I was doing with my life at all. No clue, no direction, hated every job I ever did. Thought there was something wrong with me. Just really just not, I mean, it's like, I had fun in between in there, but overall it's just, no, it wasn't working.
Right.
But I had no idea. So it wasn't until the turn. And so sit down, everyone, wait for this one.
Yeah.
I'm not making this up at all, not exaggerating one bit.
She's not, because it happened to me as well. Okay.
Oh, it happened to you as well. Oh my God. God bless you, child. Yeah. So it's a good story now. So this is what started the turn. When I was 30, I went to Paris with my boyfriend at the time. We were living together. And he dumped me in France on my 30th birthday. And so I'm like, I literally turned to him and I'm like, okay, well, one, thank God we're not on our honeymoon. Second of all, there's people getting engaged around us. Like, what is actually happening?
Can I just ask a quick question, side note? Like, what was his end game? I mean, I
have
understand if someone's
zero
gonna like,
idea.
if someone's gonna like break up with someone and end a relationship, like, why would you do it in Paris? Not just because it's Paris, it's so romantic, but why would you do it out of the country when you're on vacation together? Like, was he just like, okay, and then we'll just finish out the rest of this vacation? Like, what?
That's what I said. I'm like, I don't actually know what's going on because we had 2 weeks together, 2 weeks touring.
Is this
through
the beginning
all
of your 2 weeks?
The south of France, right? The magic, right? So, yeah, it wasn't ideal at all. It wasn't ideal. I'm like, honestly, it was miserable. But at that time, I was younger. I didn't have, like, right now, if that happened, I would be like, F you, and I would literally get on a plane and leave. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I wasn't like in the right state of mind, didn't have money. That it's just different. I was young soul,
totally
young at that time. So that wasn't an option. But anyways, so that's what happened. I was working as an interior architect in Boston, and I was miserable at that, and I had no idea what to do. But I just knew that after, he broke up with me, I had to move out of his place. I didn't like my job. I lived in Boston for so long. I loved it, but I was ready for, I was done with the cold.
Right.
And so I went on a walk one day, and it was shortly after this, and I literally got this download, but at the time I didn't know it was a download, right? It was just connection from source. And it was a very clear message of it's time to move back to California. So I moved back to California in with my parents. So I'm 30 years old, living with my parents. The economy tanked. It was around 2008, 2009. The economy tanked. There were no design jobs. So now I'm crying over my relationship. My friends are getting married. I have no money, can't get a job, and I'm winning at life.
Sure are.
So things were going really well. They were going exactly as planned. Right?
Obviously.
So, I mean, I'm like, this is great. This is so good, right? So here I am, and I'll just kind of summarize. I go a lot more in detail on my podcast about it, but basically, and I mean, this is the story. I didn't know anything about spirituality. There was no like, oh, I'm waiting for a spiritual awakening. There was nothing, right? This was just like Danielle in the third dimension body, crying over her boyfriend, like trying to get him back still, like I would never do those things, right? Almost like begging, right? This very different,
because begging is so attractive, ladies.
It's so attractive.
I mean, the more you can beg, the more they're gonna want you back. Obviously.
Well, that was my mindset. Yeah.
Mine too. Yes, please, every girl.
So I went to sleep one night, woke up and had very intense dreams, and I remember I was crying. And I'm like, whoa, just the dream was so real. And I felt like I was there. And it took me a little while to get out of it, right? And then the same thing happened the next day. And then it happened again. And I'm like, wow, these dreams are super intense. And then I started having dreams about stuff that, in the dream. And then I would see them actually play out during the day. And that's when I was like, whoa. Like this was like a Twilight Zone to me.
Wow.
Okay, because at this point in my life, I have no concept of anything beyond this physical world, right? No, and like I didn't even have the consciousness to think of anything else, right? It's just that wasn't the time then. No one was really thinking that. And so I'm like, oh my God, something is going on. And it was like, it was like literally like I was walking through like a haunted house. It was just creepy. Like I did not know what was going on. And then one night I went to sleep, and then I woke up in the middle of the night. I opened my eyes, and there is a spirit right there looking at me. And I literally lose my shit. I'm like screaming like bloody murder. I turn on the lights, and I'm just like, oh my God, because I never saw spirits growing up. Like you always hear these mediums and stuff. They're like, oh, I saw this when I was a kid. No, I was really shut down. Like nothing happened until 30, I'm telling you. I mean, I had like intuitive hits here and there.
Right.
Basic, but nothing happened. And so I saw that, and I didn't sleep with the lights off for 2 weeks. I was so scared. And then I actually thought I was losing my mind. And so I was about to tell my family, I'm like, there's something wrong, like I thought I was like hallucinating. I just did not know. And then I realized that this was the clincher. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought I was going crazy. And so then I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not going crazy, because if I was going crazy, and I don't mean to use that term or offend anyone, but that's how I felt. So I'm going to use that. Mm-hmm. If I was going crazy, I wouldn't have the hindsight of I look crazy, because if a person's lost their mind and marbles, they don't have the awareness. So then I'm like, I'm not motherfucking crazy. Like that's what it was. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. And I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, something is happening. And so from that moment, I literally was guided. spirit talks to us all day long. It's not like there's a person on my shoulder being like, hey, Danielle, did you eat your bagel for breakfast? Right. It's not like that.
Right.
We hear it's subtle, and we're getting intuition all day long. And so it was very strong at the time, because I have I had a very strong mission, and I had to really learn and go on this path. So they spoke to me. It was very clear. I mean, it just sounded like your thoughts, but it was very like no question about it.
Right.
And so it was like, sit down and meditate. And I'm like, how do I meditate? It was like, meditate. I'm like, okay. Right. And so I would just follow the path. And I'm telling you, this was a several year journey, basically of me removing the old ego, right? We all have that ego, removing the old ego. The old Danielle was dying, and basically transforming my behavioral patterns and my consciousness. And I would say I was in like a major spiritual boot camp from 30 to 35, 36. It was like hell. I was starting my business in that process,
Right.
but it was hell. I mean, at many points I was on the ground crying, begging the universe just to like give me this normal life. Like, I'm like, can I just be an accountant? And I'm like,
Yes.
I'm not good with math, so that's not going to really work. And I'm like, I just wanted this normal life, and nobody else was going through what I was going through. And it was hard, but at the same time, I knew that ever since this happened, I'm like, this is what I'm here for. Like, I can't explain it. It was something I knew deep in my soul, like when you know, and
Yep.
I knew without a shadow of a doubt, even when I was crying, even when I started my business and didn't make money for years, something told me to keep going. And then here I am 12, 13 years later, and I love what I do. I built a beautiful business.
Yes.
And, it's so funny, because most of those people that think it's a hobby, listen, this is not about money to me, but the irony is like, I'm more successful financially than those people that are making fun of me thinking it's a hobby. And
Right.
like, because if you have a purpose, the universe is going to reward you. And that's my point of saying that for people.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, it's very parallel, not exactly with me. I knew what I wanted to do, probably since birth. That was definitely part of my cosmic blueprint. That's my plan coming here. I've always been an entertainer, a performer of sorts, knowing that my words, could affect people, even from like in college, broadcast journalism and media communications. I had a double major, and, I was going to be on the news, but I was working for the paper, and I could watch people reading my stuff, and I was like, oh, I affect them. And I was a singer, and I was a performer since I was a very, young girl. And so I always knew that that's what it was going to be. And I used to be very envious of all of my friends that were like, I have no fucking idea what I want to do. I'm like, how nice, because you can really try out a whole bunch of things. Like I have always known, I used to pray sometimes when I was struggling, like I would pray, like, let me be able to give this up without regrets. And I'll do interior design. I'll learn better math and become an accountant. I'll do anything that this is such a hard industry. Like, why would I choose this? It took me a very long time to get to the place that I was like, oh, because I'm affecting people, even if it's one person, what I do on stage, what I do, when I write, when I do a podcast, when I do anything, if I can touch one person. It took me a long time to get there. And it's funny, because I did my internship at a radio station in college, and they had an astrologer on. And that was the first time I actually met someone who had done, who was doing this. Other than that, it was just like reading your horoscope in the newspaper. And my mom would be like, today's your lucky day. I was like, yeah, lucky day. You know what I mean? But we had this astrologer on, and she was talking about, it's the Saturn return, which is every 28, 29 years. Is that? Yes.
29
so
years.
She originally told me it happens every, 27 to 29. And I remember this specifically because I was interning at the station. So I was 21, but the two other DJs were around that age, and they both had major life changes happening. One was about to have a child, and the other one was actually moving across the country. And I remember her talking about that. And of course I was like, got it. And then of course I fucking forgot it. But I kind of stuck with me. It wasn't until, I look back, I moved out here at 28, and right when I turned 28, and I did it on a trial period. It was like a 3-month. I'm from Jersey. I was in New York. I started comedy in New York. I had no plans to move to LA. I was like, fuck that place. Earthquake's going to come, suck everyone in. Everyone's fake. Everyone's a Valley girl. Like, I'm a Jersey girl. My hair's big.
I grew up in the Valley, by the way, like a legitimate Valley girl.
I live in the Valley now. How fucking funny is that? So I have become that Valley girl. I I was like, I'll go for 3 months for pilot season. For those of you who don't know what that is when they're casting, television shows. It was a specific like 3-month block. So I had a place to stay for free. And I was going to get a bartending job because I was bartending in the city. So I come out, stay at the beach, terrible hair every day. My hair, I was like, well, first things first, I cannot live at the beach. I was in Hermosa Beach, was bartending. I was only here I cried every day for the first month. Like how you were crying and you're just like, I was in pain. And it's obviously because we were being reborn in a way. It's painful.
That's exactly it.
It's painful. It's fucking painful. They slap you on the ass. It's painful. You don't know how to breathe yet. You're like, what the fuck's happening? You have shit on your face. You don't know what's happening.
Yep.
So I was crying and crying and crying. I called my mom. I think I maybe had only been here even 3 weeks, not even a month. And my mom was like, come home. You still have your bartending job here. You still have your apartment here. Like I was living with friends. Like there was no reason. She's like, come home. And I go, no, you don't understand. I'm crying because I know I have to stay. Like I knew the moment I got off the plane, oh, fuck, I have to stay here. And it has been 20 years. And it was so, even the first, like in my mind, it was just make it so that you can go back. That's all kept motivating me. But that was the death of Jersey Jodi.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it was the death of Jersey Jodi. Although, trust me, I'm still in here. But it was this new person. And, the journey I was about to go on has been really fucking hard in a lot of ways. And also really beautiful in so many ways.
You get it.
And no regrets at all. But for a long time I had the opposite. I've known, I for as long as I can remember, with the exception of like when I wanted to be a veterinarian, and every girl growing up wants to be a veterinarian at one time. They're like, I'm going to fix all the animals. I just knew that, I wanted to do this from a very young age.
But you get it. It's not easy. It's a part of us is dying, so something else can be reborn.
It's really, really painful.
Incredibly. That's why I'm in my 40s now, and my 30s they're fine because I learned, but like you couldn't pay me to go back to my 30s. Like my 40s have been the best.
Right.
They've been way better because it's like I know who I am.
Yes.
And I'm aligned now. Then I was discovering who I was.
Right. I think, yes, you're right. Yeah, your 20s, you're just like, whatever. Like, I like to make a joke about, like, your 20s were so easy. I could be like, oh my God, Danielle, you like blue? I like blue. Let's get wasted. Like, I didn't even.
Exactly the 20s, yes. That's so funny.
And then your 30s, you're like, okay, well, I made a vision board, so I'm doing the work. Like, what's happening here? Yes. And then your 40s, you're like, oh, I have to really find out who I am and get to the bottom of it. You know what I mean? And like only surround myself with people that enrich my life and, bring bring elements of joy and knowledge. You know what I mean? I mean, of course, you know what I mean.
I love it. I love the, you like blue? I like blue. Let's get wasted. That's literally the 20s.
Right? Was that not your 20s?
Nothing matters. You could just have boyfriends all the time, date everyone because it's like, oh yeah, I like I like It's like, it's just so, and you definitely, by the way, I mean, like, we're both in our 40s and I have a joke just about social media and, what really resonated on your website, which I've talked about a lot is like, when you were saying that you thought you were having a quarter life crisis, but at 30 you felt like you were too old. But here's the thing. It's no longer a midlife crisis. It's a quarter life crisis. It's a 3/4 life crisis. Social media perpetuates this constant compare and despair. We're always looking for answers everywhere else. I mean, just the fact you telling me that your boyfriend broke up with you in Paris, which is just horrific. But could you imagine if, like, I don't understand how people get over people now on social media. Do you remember the days when you just break up, not in Paris, but you could and unless you ran into them at a party or they called you, you would not know what they were doing. And you were actually allowed to heal. 100%. And now it's like, oh my God. I think maybe I was on Facebook then, but like Facebook, only, it was like colleges. That's how archaic. It was like for colleges. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yep. Kids now won't even know about that, but it was only for colleges. Like if you were into the school, then that school, like you would be in this group.
That's right. Yep.
Weird.
And then like all of a sudden, like your mom or dad joined and you're like,
Yes.
get off of there. What are you
And then
doing?
like a cousin that you're like, who are you?
Yeah, we're not related. Like, oh my God. Yeah. It's so
Yeah.
funny. So you've been able to use social media, obviously, to reach a lot of people, which is incredibly,
Yeah.
impressive. And it's a lot of work. It's,
It is.
we do so much work, in our 20s and our 30s, and then like in our 40s. I mean, do you like, so do, I mean, you're constantly posting, which is amazing. And your content is amazing, but that is like a full-time job for you, correct?
Yeah,
That
that's
is
a
like,
full-time job, and that's not even like my job. But
right,
I do
exactly.
I do get lots of downloads, and I like writing, so it's beautiful and I
Right.
enjoy it. But yeah, it's just constantly. I'll never post though, me personally. Like I know there's a lot of people. I can never take a business class because I wouldn't listen to anything they told me. Because they're like, you have to be consistent. You have to post this. I can't post on any schedule.
Right.
I literally do it when I'm inspired. I've been on driving and I pulled over on the side of the road because something was coming through. Right. So it's just like I post, but I'm getting a lot of information, but it is a lot, it's like, let's find a picture, let's post this. Then I post to Facebook, there's a
Right.
lot now, Telegram, because everyone's getting kicked off of Instagram. I mean, it's like a whole to do. It is a lot. And people don't realize that this is a business. And that's what I like to tell people. It is, if I was selling vacuums or I'm selling, services to help people find their soul and their heart, connect back with their soul, I should say, and their heart, it doesn't matter. It's a business. You run it like a business. And so, I have a team and I have, I'm always doing new programs and this and that.
Right.
And, it's I wouldn't have it any other way. Like today is Saturday. I'm here talking with you. I already did a live with someone and I did another podcast with someone. And I'm like, that's Saturday. But to me, I love it.
Yes.
What else am I going to be doing right now?
No, it's so great.
It is work, but it's alignment. That's just the word that keeps coming through lately with everything. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else because it's my heart and it's my soul.
Yes. This is what you're meant to do.
Yes.
1,000%. And by the way, you weren't meant to do it earlier. Like,
No.
it's another thing that you learn when you get older too, by the way, is timing. And some people, by the way, will never learn these lessons, and that's fine because that's their journey. Some people will stay, yes, ignorance is bliss. I love that saying. And sometimes I wish I was a little ignorant. Sometimes I just was like just floating through life. And then because once you wake up, you are woke and
You're
it's
up.
painful.
You can't go back to sleep.
Up. It's like that alarm went off and you cannot go back to sleep, and you just want to sometimes, but you cannot. So some people, yes, will never, awaken to that. It's taken me, again, I'm a Taurus, so I'm stubborn. I'm incredibly impatient with a lot of things, especially things that have to do with me. So it is like, come on, like universe, like what is happening? But then like something happens and I know that that's why it happened when it happened. The same reason, that's what you're doing, what you're doing.
100%. Yeah. What you just said is so true and so real. There is a divine timing in the universe, and yes, we can shift things because we could shift things in a second because we're that powerful. But at the same time, there are certain things that are going to play out that we're just possibly not ready for. And my soul was not ready before 30 because it's a responsibility. And I will also say I'm still moving into my gifts. I still don't have full access to like the whole gamut of what's happening because it's a process. And I can see over time that the more my consciousness opens up, the more I embody it, the more clear I am, the more I can contain that energy. Because I can see now, even though I was like super psychic and intuitive at 30, 31, me now it's a different level. It's not about me predicting, oh, you're going to meet a guy with blonde hair. Like I don't do that stuff. It's more understanding. I'm literally getting downloads from the universe. Like this is some serious shit,
That's like amazing.
That's why I love that to bring in humor with it because I'm like, oh my God, I'm still human. I'm still on earth, but this is a contract. This is a major contract.
It is a major contract. And you honestly, everybody needs that sort of humor too. If you take yourself way too seriously or you take any aspect of things like way too seriously, it can really bite you in the ass. If you're a human being and you're going to have shitty days, just like everyone else, and anybody that's like, every day is divine and I'm totally zen, you're like, well, you're a liar because that's impossible. 100%. You can't be like that. It's like, what are you talking about? But I'm going to ask you the question that I'm sure so many people have asked you, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and we're going to put our own spin on it. But like, obviously, did you see 2020 coming? I know astrologically there were so many things in the air. You know, it's funny because I went back, I think maybe in March or April when things really started, you know, the shit was really hitting the fan. And I looked at like predictions for the year 2020 ahead, and a lot of things that I read were very on point in a way, but I don't know if anybody could have predicted or seen like the magnitude of what happened. Like, what did you think about 2020 going into it?
So it's funny because before this, my focus was on soul astrology, where my gift is really looking at people's
right
birth charts and going in. I actually stopped doing readings for a while because I
right.
just needed a pause. So, you know, yes, I was looking at transits, and what transits are the planets in the sky, but I would look at them like, you know, like kind of what's happening right now. I wasn't
Right.
always like tracking the year ahead. And
Right.
that's just the kind of astrology that I did.
Okay, great.
But then this is the thing. Somehow I was looking at some stuff and looking at my transits or whatnot, and then I saw that I read somewhere that when what was it, Pluto and I think it was Pluto and Saturn were in opposition during 9/11. So I was like,
wow.
okay, and that was coming up. So I was like, I want to look at that. So then I started. It was around November, and I started doing some research. And I started looking in, and I started looking at the astrology for 2020. I actually made a Insta story, and I saved it. So I shared it in my thing. I think it was either October, maybe November. The date's on the thing.
Check it out,
November
everyone.
2019. What was that?
I just told everyone to check it out.
Yeah. And so I saved it. It's on my feed. And once I realized what was going to be going down in 2020, I literally was in shock. So I probably should have waited before I did the video. I came on and I said, you guys don't understand what's happening. We are in for some serious restructuring. And I'm like, I don't know how to tell you this. And I didn't want to bring up the 9/11 thing because I didn't want to scare people. But I saw that. And so I said, we're in for some serious restructuring. And I said, the universe is going to get our attention anyway. How? And I said, and then I started telling my friends, I'm like, 2020 is going to be not good. And they would all say to me, you're being so negative, stop. And I remember I was at a party and we were going around the room and everyone, this was in fall of 2019. Everyone was like, I'm so excited. I literally look at my friend and I was like, oh my God. And this was like a spiritual LA party. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but nobody knows what they're talking about. And then she's like, you're so negative. And I'm like, I'm telling you, it's going to be bad. And now they come back to me. They're like, holy shit. So here's the thing. I saw that there's two planets that were opposing each other. And astrology, I haven't been tracking the cycles for years, but now I'm moving into that, right? So that's what I'm doing now. So you can see they were opposing each other during 9/11. They were conjunct during like World War I, World War II, and all these things. So you see the cycle. So then when I saw that they were coming together January 12th of 2020, that's when I'm like, we have a problem. We have a major problem. Now, here's the thing. I personally wouldn't have predicted a virus,
a global
because
pandemic.
I haven't been doing predictions for astrology like that.
Right.
But I will say, about a year before this, I was listening to an astrology podcast where one of my teachers, couldn't even tell you who it was or who was saying it, but they talked about how we're moving into all this air energy, and what moves fast is virus, and things move fast. So I remember hearing that and being like, oh, okay. But like, I didn't necessarily see that. But what I did know is what's happening. It's a complete restructuring of our government, of the top-down systems, of the old systems. And that's why we're in the middle of like a demolition site. Yeah. So I said, they're going to get our attention anyway. And I said, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be good. And we need to really pay attention. So, and that was me just like, honestly, my first go at predicting, I never did a year in advance thing.
Right.
So I'm like, holy shit, once you see that, you know. And so now, you know, like I've been mapping 2021.
How does 2021 look? Because I'm sure people want to know.
Yeah, you know, it's different. There's a lot of, so we touched and dabbled in air energy. Right. But 2020 was really the more of an ending of a chapter to me, of breaking down. So
I agree.
2021 is really the start of a new era. And right now we have Saturn and Jupiter conjunct at 0 degrees Aquarius. So they haven't been conjunct in an air sign in over 200 years. So this is a brand new cycle. And what people need to realize is astrology is our consciousness. It's our collective. So again, you don't have to believe in astrology, but we are affected by these patterns, right? You can see the cycles You can see the wars, and there's same planets doing some similar things during each wars, right? So this is a lot of air energy and Aquarius energy. And Aquarius to me is a very split, two-sided thing. One, it's power to the people. It's about, fuck the government, take our power back, right? So you have that side. It's also very visionary, in being inventive, marching to the beat of your own drum. It's about tribe and community and coming together as one. Right. And it's really universal brotherhood, okay, for humanity. So that's beautiful. The other side of this, it's Aquarius is air sign, so it's very detached. So it's almost like it's better in groups, but not good one-on-one. Okay. And this detachment pulls us a little bit out of our heart because it brings us into our head. And then you get all this, Uranus is moving through Taurus. So Uranus is invention and shaking things up in revolution. Taurus is the body. Then you have Uranus squaring Saturn 3 times next year, and that's restrictions on the body. So talk about microchipping. So to me, the shadow side of Aquarius gets very dystopian. It gets very morbid, like these things we see in the movies. It gets very cold and just people kind of robotic, and also microchipping and doing these things, technology to the bodies that's not actually good for you, right? Of course not. We're going to see a lot of advances that's amazing. But then also a lot of stuff is don't you dare get that microchip near my body. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's a very split thing. One thing that's important for people to know is 2021 is going to move quickly because we have so many planets in air, and air moves quickly. It just goes. Right. It goes like this. So we're going to see a lot of shocking, sudden turning things moving. It's going to be boom, 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 boom. But then we're going to move on and we're advancing. So it's going to be a very, very interesting year.
It really scares me. You're talking about things we see in the movies, inventions, microchipping, dystopia, what really just boggles my mind is that we have seen this in movies dating back 30, 40 years, the fear of, AI, exterminating humans, X, Y, and Z, yes, viruses, whatever. And it's happening and we're making it happen. And it's and how are we making it happen?
On the 5G towers, they think that's to download their Netflix faster. That is the last thing it's for. It's literally part of this artificial intelligence and screening us and doing all these things that are invasive to us.
It's just mind-boggling that the signs are there and so many people just keep going for we're just moving forward, we're just a herd, just getting, you know what I mean? And it's just, and then the people that aren't a part of it are just getting picked off or going off over here. It's very scary in a lot of ways. Makes me think, it obviously makes me think the next chapter of my life, what is that going to, I'm in the process of adoption and, so yeah, I'm so excited. But it's then I think about what, how is my child going to be raised and what world is it going to be raised? Yes. So you have all of these fears. And then there's the other part of me that's but I'm not going to let that take over my life. I'm going to do what I can do, but I'm also going to live my life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You have to live your life. You know what I mean? Make people laugh, create, invent, you know what I mean? Touch as many people as I can, do whatever I can to either slow it, stop it, whatever, but also live my life and enjoy what's out there. And everybody in this year, the planet included, we all had a hard reset. So it's sort of similar to, the Saturn returning when you're reborn in a way. We're all coming out of this year as a newer version of ourselves. Everything is a newer version. It's a different version of ourselves. And it's 100%. Interesting how many people have left the planet this year.
It's been a collective dark night of the soul for everyone. And it's really hard for people who have never done any shadow work or healing work. This feels very foreign and scary. But listen, this is not my first rodeo. So when this happened in March, literally I sat down with myself and I'm like, holy shit, everything that I've gone through from 30 to now has prepared me for this one moment to help guide people. I'm like, I get it. Why? Because I also feel like I went through, yes, it was late, but I feel like it was also earlier than a lot of people because a lot of people are going through it now. And I'm like, no, I've been there 12, 13 years ago. So I'm like, they prepared me because there's new leaders coming.
Yeah.
And it's not like bow to us. It's no, it's just saying like, we've been through it. We got it. Let's just go this direction. Let's all go together.
Right. I think some people might never get it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, like when, this and everything started happening in March,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of who I am. I'm a full Taurus, I'm definitely both a Taurus and a Leo in a lot of ways. But I
Fixed
mean,
energy.
Taurus as far as like, I do not like change.
Yes.
Even though I change quite a bit, it's kicking
But
and
you
screaming.
change on your own time. A Taurus can change on their own time, not when someone else pushes them to do it.
Exactly. I get very much like, yes. So when this was happening, like with my job, I was still working on 2 shows, and we went until, June, until we went on hiatus. But I was like, this has to be a month, 6 weeks, because that, like, I've got a new life that I just started, 4 years ago. And, you're not fucking with me, Corona. Like, I'm going back to work. I'm going to back on stage. I'm performing. I was like flying home March, 11th, and then March 12th, like, all of California shut down. But I was like, oh, it'll be reopened soon, because I was so like, and then you accept it. And, it's like going through the stages of grief. I went through it
100%.
over and over again.
The best was when people were really thinking it was 2 weeks. And I was like, it's never going to be 2 weeks. Do you know, I mean, I'm going to tell you this. In the beginning of quarantine, when we had no idea what was going on, I was in meditation. I got a very clear download. We have a 3-year journey of this. 3 years. I'm not saying it's going to be as bad as it was.
Right.
It's going to be ebbs and flows, but we have this whole thing is about a 10, 13-year process, I see, of just literally shifting into this new earth, new age. But we have 3 years of this isn't not going to be the easiest, but you can still find joy, because I think a lot of people come together in other ways. So there's still beauty to be found.
No, of course. And you have to. And so many people, it's also really important for people to remember, and I've said this like so many times, like, living in fear is so unhealthy mentally and physically. You're living in fear, and that does a number on our bodies. It compromises our immune system. It compromises our decision making. So we get to a point where we're like, I'll do whatever you say, because we're in fear. People that are in fear are easily controllable.
And that's their plan, though.
Yeah, of course. So it is like, I try to, I'm performing, I'm doing, drive-in shows. I have a big backyard, and I have my bubble of friends that, come over. It's important to have those relationships, keep those people in your life, because that reminds you, you know what I mean? Like, it reminds you that we will get through, you know what I mean? We will get through with it. And there are some people that I just know that are just so shut down in so many different areas of their life. It's sad. It's very sad to see, and I'm sure you see it so often.
All the time. Yeah. And I mean, the reality is we're all on a different journey.
Yes.
And we're all on a different consciousness level. And it's not about making it sound like, oh, this is so evolved and this person is better, but it's very clear we're in different consciousness levels. We could reside in different frequencies and different dimensions, even right next to each other. And I think that's what people need to realize, is that, I mean, you could have one person all masked up with gloves on and in fear, and then the other person with nothing on, right? And they're right next to each other. So it's like, what reality are you choosing to live in? And that's the consciousness level, that's how we choose our own adventure, right? We can't control everything that goes on around us, but we can choose how we react to it, and whose, immune system is healthier there.
No, you're 100%. Yeah. Let me ask you a question, because you mentioned on your website, but you were mentioning that everyone's intuitive. I mean, and everyone has a bit of a psychic in them.
Absolutely.
So tell me, and everyone listening, because I'm sure a lot of people are like, what do you mean? Like, hi, I pay so much money. Like, when people are always like, have you seen a psychic? I'm like, I'm over 40 and I have a cat and single. Of course I've seen a psychic.
Oh my God, that was the best line I've ever heard in my life. That was amazing. Yes, that's classic.
I'm like, yeah, I see many psychics. I love when I see an intuitive and they're like, have you ever done this before? I'm like, have you? Like, are you kidding me?
Like, you're like, you must not be that good if you're asking.
Exactly. Like, I'm so open. If my dead mom doesn't come through, I know you're not real. Like, I'm ready to be like, bring it. But I'm always, and I joke about, like, of course I've seen so many psychics because I'm impatient and I don't have time to see how it's going to unfold. Just tell me. But I think, sometimes, and I'm going to ask you the question that, I struggle with, because I think I'm intuitive, and I know obviously a lot of people are, but sometimes we don't trust that intuition a lot of times. because
that's the biggest problem. It's not that you're not intuitive, it's that you don't trust it. And that's the human journey.
so like if everyone has like the psychic ability in them, how do they channel it or open that up a little bit more so they can be just a little bit more aware of it? Not so much where they're like, yeah, Miss Cleo, we're like charging,
Yeah,
um,
no, I mean listen, if you have that, you'll know. It's listen, we
yes.
all have the channel. Let's just like make a visual of this.
Okay.
Just to make it easier. Let's make it tangible. Let's say it's like a phone line, right?
Okay.
Going up to spirit. And I'm not saying that it's above you, but we're just going to use the visual to help people
Right.
understand. Okay. So it's a phone line. We all have the phone line. Someone's might be clogged, someone might be cut off, someone's might be not plugged in fully, right? Someone's it swiggles, like it goes like that,
Right.
so it's not a straight line, right? So it might take longer, right? So we all have it. It's just a matter of how is it like laid out, and also can we listen? Because so the biggest thing I can say about my spiritual journey is I listened. I was quiet and I sat with myself and I listened. And also, you have to be willing to see truth. Like there was a lot of things I had to change about myself and let go and release, right? But I had to be willing to see it. So the more you're willing to see it and move through your density and your shadows and your wounding and your beliefs from parents, from family, from society, right? The more clear you become, because the more we're all light beings, but we're covered with density.
Right.
And that's why people, are sick and overweight and depressed and they have this disease, is because they have layers and layers and layers and layers of conditioning and emotional junk on them. We don't understand, or I shouldn't say we, but Western medicine does not put together the fact that you cannot separate the emotional with the physical. You cannot separate it. Cannot. That's why healings work. That's why when people go through trauma, then they get sick afterwards, and you heal people's trauma, their body actually heals as well.
Yep.
Right.
No, I'm totally on board with that on everything.
Yeah, it's not, and if that's weird to someone, or if that's like, oh my God, this girl is out there. Okay, fine. Maybe you're not there yet, but you will come back eventually and understand that. And that's where we're going. You cannot separate the two. It doesn't work that way.
You can't. And so I talk about this a lot on stage, lots of podcasts, because for me, it was such another life-changing, we have all of these life-changing moments that we sort of we're like, oh, that happened. You know what I mean? But about two years ago, I did my first MDMA journey with a therapist. And I had never done it before. I'd never done ecstasy, Molly, anything like that. And this was pure MDMA.
Wow.
I don't know why I didn't, because I did like every other drug in college. I was like, what up? And then when like ecstasy came out, I was like, I'm good. I'm just going to drink. So then so everyone was like, well, you've done Molly before. I was like, no, I don't even know. Like, I only know what to expect just from what people would tell me, but it was life-changing. It was literally 2 years of therapy in one day. It was, we got down, the thing with me is that I'm incredibly fortunate that I don't suffer from depression. My mom suffered from depression, and it was very sad to see before she passed. And I'm very fortunate that my dad and I, we don't have that. But I definitely have been in therapy for years. I've lots of other bullshit going on in here, but I've gotten to a point where with talk therapy, you're never going to reach what I don't want you to reach. And I'm not even conscious of the fact. I'm not even conscious of the fact that I don't want you to reach it. I'm in a good mood. I'm normally in a very good mood. So you're not going to access something that's painful, not because I don't want you to. I want you to get there. But my body is really good at blocking
Our
that.
bodies are so intelligent at pressing it, shoving it down. It's a coping mechanism.
Yes, it's a coping mechanism. So the first time I did it, and I did it with a therapist, I got physically ill. I was dry heaving because I didn't have anything to eat. The first time it happened, we were just like, okay, your body's just getting used to the medicine. And then we, as we were going on, I get that wave of nausea, and I was like, I'm going to throw up. And she, I was dry heaving. And then she pointed out, she's like, do you notice that every time we talk about this specific topic, you get nauseous? And it was because when you take something like MDMA, which is used, in therapeutic, for therapeutic sessions, for couples therapy, they're now using it again for people with PTSD. It really, the ego's gone. It takes away the ego. So you want to talk about it. You want to talk about painful things, but your body, on the other hand, so my brain was like, I was trying to talk about it and my body was fighting it. Like, don't you dare. But unfortunately I was
and
able
also
to
releasing at the same time. You are
purging
totally
it.
releasing.
Yes. I had like these amazing purges. And now I've been on several journeys, with ketamine, like a lot of other things, mushrooms. That's been life-changing for me, to go on a journey with a friend, to set intentions and to chip away at really like traumas before I even had words, traumas that probably happened like just verbally, or energies that our bodies carried on for a very long time, things that have either held me back or I wasn't able. It's just such a peek behind the curtain. It's an opening of my body and my brain, and I think in a new way that, I just love it. I love it so much. That to me has been a life-changing.
That's beautiful. I like that you did it with a therapist. So it was like in a controlled environment.
It's a controlled
like
environment.
a safe environment. Because I actually have no problem with plant medicine or any of that stuff, because I think it's very helpful. But I do have a problem with people misusing it and doing it for fun. And also the integration period. And people don't realize what it does to your energy field. It's actually opening up and putting holes into your auric field. So people need to be very careful, because they're very susceptible to psychic attack afterwards. And again, people, this is like, oh, it won't happen. You can't control a psychic attack like that, especially if your energy is so open. So there's a lot I see that a lot of people don't see. But I think it does. I think for therapy and stuff, it should 100% be used for all that stuff.
It should totally. I agree with you. You have to be so careful who you are with afterwards.
Just a lot of things I see that other people don't see, and that's okay. I mean, everyone has a journey. I'm not knocking it, because I know it's helped so many people. You just have to be. I think there's a prep period, there's the process, and there's an integration period, and you got to really understand. And it's also hard on your body. It's hard on your liver too. So your liver has to process a lot. Yes. So there's just things, but I do believe it can help so many people. So it's just, you have to do it under the right circumstances. I believe.
Agreed. I always just feel like too, like, huge pharmaceuticals, hate that they're using this more and more. You know what I mean? Because they're not going to make any money. So that, of course, until they find a way to make money off of it, it's still so, hard for a lot of people that actually could benefit greatly from that.
I've seen it change. People have been depressed for years, and they do something like that, and it completely changes them.
Right? It completely changes their
It's so beautiful, because I'm like, oh my God, they got their life back. And that's so important, So I do believe like it needs to be done more, but just more in a responsible way. Because I mean, I always hear about someone, oh, did you hear that person from high school? She's now a shaman in Topanga and she's doing it. I'm like, that girl is doing it? I'm like, no. I would not trust that girl to be leading me in like an ayahuasca ceremony. I'm like, no.
You're like, I might just go with her. She's not leading me in anything.
Yeah, no, I can know her. I'm like, just no. And I've seen her over the years. I'm like, no, not her. Things like that. I'm like, anyone just calls themselves a shaman and does it. So I'm like, you just have to be very careful about where you're going and who you're
doing it with. That is a good piece of advice for people.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, like, when you bring up shadow work, what do you mean by that? Because I'm not that familiar with, shadow work.
Well, you've done shadow work.
Have I?
So, I mean, just the crying, the purging.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Going to our density, going to our childhood trauma. We all have childhood trauma. I don't care what anyone says, right? And we all have past life parallel lives, whatever it's called, because everything's happening at the same time. But our soul has that. So it's embedded. We have trauma, right? So shadow work is going to the parts of ourselves and actually really diving in and seeing there, and we're clearing out the density. So with that comes, dark nights of the soul, crying, feeling, maybe even getting physically sick, like willing to go in to see the parts of yourself that are not pretty, rather than keeping the smile on and just pushing it down. Because the more you clear this, the more this is why I was saying, you're already a channel.
Right.
You just have shit covering you. It's like you're covered in mud, right? We all are. Like, we're covered in mud, but we can't see it, so we don't know. Like, we take showers because we get dirty, right? But how often, unless someone is like I'm doing and other people are consciously aware of it, how often are you cleaning your energy field? No, people aren't doing it. But people that, like, I will literally go on dates with guys, and I'm there, and I'm like, and I almost want to like vomit. And I'm not trying to be mean, but I can see the density of all the women that they've had sex with. And it's just like sitting there in their sacral chakra, and it's
Oh,
heavy. It's like, it's dark energy. And it's not like they're not doing anything wrong. They didn't know, but I'm like, they have no idea. And I'm like, I could never be with this person, because I'm like literally getting nauseous just standing next to them, because I can see like the years and years and years of how many people they've had sex with. And it's just all the trauma, you know, you take on their karma and you take on their shit. It's all in the energy field. So it's like all of a sudden going on a date with someone covered in mud and being like, hey, we want to like, you know, like lick my arm. No, I don't want to lick your arm, you know?
by the way, I feel like that would happen to me just on a regular date. Some dude would be
Yeah.
like, lick my arm. I've had so many horrible dates. I would not be surprised if a guy was like, lick my arm. I'd be like, all right. It's so, you know,
Like, here we go again.
yeah, exactly. Again. It happens every time.
He's like, I heard about you. That's why I'm here. I know
Jodi
about
likes
you.
to lick guys' arms. That's why she's single. You know, I honestly, though, I get to the place, you know, I've definitely had to remove a lot of those people in my life, friends, you know, just people that have been in my life a long time, because their energy, it's like through the years, you know, it started in the 20s where we both liked blue and we got wasted. And then through
Yep.
the year, they kept piling on. They got heavier and heavier and heavier. And I don't mean like weight wise.
No, exactly.
Yeah, they got energetically heavy. And I am someone that by nature takes it on anyway. Like
Yep.
I that's sort of my purpose, as far as like, yeah, let me give me. And then I was like, no, I had to, it was very hard for me to
Yeah.
stop, you know, taking that on and being around those people. It was very hard for me to say, no, I have to take care of myself, which is my part of my own journey. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's a lot of people, I think the older you get to, you can spot them right away.
Yep.
People don't realize, guys out there, like, you might be like, I don't, yeah, everyone does. When you're like, I just got a bad feeling about that person, or
100%.
that person's laughing, but there's something very negative about them. Or yes,
Yes.
all of their jokes are really passive aggressive.
Yes.
Like,
You know, you can see it. That's why we're all intuitive. We know.
yes, but, and like other people will just be like, oh, I don't know, like, we're not compatible. I'm like, well, there's a reason you're not compatible.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, but I still, even at where I'm at and as much work as I've done, and I think you do work throughout your life, you constantly
Oh,
keep
yeah.
learning.
Yep.
I still, though, have those arguments with myself sometimes, like, really, this is the path you decided before you were born. Like, I get so
I do
angry
that
sometimes.
all the time. And I'm like, wow. I mean, I was even told from spirit, I'm like, you chose to be an example of not settling. And I literally was like, are you fucking kidding me? I signed up for that. I'm like, great.
Oh my God, I can't. It's so
So I'm
funny
just
that you
gonna have to
just
keep
said that
waiting,
too.
because I wanted to be Little Miss America over here, you know, Little
Yes.
Miss Sunshine of not settling.
It's so funny that you just said that too, because yeah, I never settle. And for me, it came from my mom, who was very pessimistic about pretty much everything, except when it came to me and my brother, but just about her own life and about how things would turn out, you know, fearful of everything. But I never forget, I was looking for a prom dress, senior prom. I ended up with the gold lame dress, people, just so you know, it was the 80s. So I was looking for a dress and I couldn't find anything. I just kept putting it on. I remember I came out in a dress that was very like whatever, probably at Macy's or Sears. And my mom was like, she's like, well, do you love it? I'm like, I mean, it's the best that I've seen so far. I think it'll work. And my mom just looks at me and she goes, don't ever settle. It
Yes.
just shot right out of her mouth, which is very strange because my mom settled all the time. But
Yeah.
to me, she just said that. And when I say it, just like ingrained itself, like right in my brain.
Yeah.
And I mean, throughout my years with my career, never being married, not having kids, like very few serious relationships in my life, yet I want them so much. And I've gotten to a place, and I'm not going to settle because, you know, it's obviously, it would never happen, or I would have already. And
Yep.
it's one of those things where, yeah, I ask myself, like, really, like, this is what you decided that this lifetime was going to be. This is it. I mean, it's
Yeah,
like,
I know, I
okay,
think that all
but
the time. But you know, it's like you just know our souls wouldn't have wanted it any other way. And it's also like, you know, not settling doesn't mean denying. It just means
right.
delaying a little bit. So it's like I already know that the man that is for me, it's like it's a love that people are literally going to stop and turn, right? So, and I believe that about everyone that's waiting, and I believe that for you too. So just know that it's there, or whoever, what anyone likes to date. Doesn't need to be a man.
Yes.
I don't know what anyone dates, but
I date a
you
man.
know,
My cat and a man. That's it. Those are the only two loves.
you
Yes.
know. So it just we have to realize it doesn't mean deny. It's just could mean delay of what society says is normal.
You know, I want speaking of timing, as far as like, I know that man or that baby, whatever's supposed to come is supposed to come because, short story, when my mom passed, my brother and I, got these, her properties, these two homes. One we gave back to the bank because it wasn't paid off. And then the one in Jersey, I was like, okay, let's sell that so that I can buy a house. And this is, 7 years ago. Like, let's do it. Like, Jodi's ready to buy a house. And my brother's like, no, I'm living here. And I was like, what? So we didn't, he was living there. I held all of this resentment because I wanted the money of that house to buy a house. And then, cut to 3 years ago, my brother had a health setback. He's fine, but he had to move out of that house just because he had to move in with my dad so my dad could take care of him. And my dad was like, that is it. The stress of managing that house was too much. We're selling the house. It took a process. While that was happening, I got a job that I didn't think I would get. And I moved into this other position, like, being a head writer on a show. And it was so great. And my life was changing in a different way. And I was all of a sudden ready to buy a house. And when the moment I walked into this house, it was like, oh, I've always been meant to live here. I've always been meant to live here. And 7 years ago, if we had sold that house, these people were not ready to move out of the house. They're a lovely couple that retired, but they weren't ready at the time. They're both professors. They weren't ready. This house was not ready for me. That is why X, Y, and Z had to happen. House wasn't ready for me. The moment I walked in here, I put an offer in within the house wasn't even listed 24 hours.
Amazing.
I got it. Yes, it was one of those things where the house, when I walked in, was like, oh, welcome home. It was the most amazing feeling I've ever had of anything. And I look at back and I'm like, this is the place I was supposed to live. It wasn't ready for me yet. So I like to just think like I might be ready. I've done a lot of work for that relationship, for that love that you said that will make people turn. But maybe that guy, he is not ready.
Exactly. Maybe he's getting a divorce right now. I think about it all the time. I'm like, just could you divorce her already? Like, let's get on with it. I'm like, let's just go. And like, it didn't work. Like, love each other from afar and let's move on.
Right, like enough already. Like that's enough. Get the divorce. For those guys,
I know, I'm like, just write it, sign it already.
Guys, for those listening and watching us, like we're two awesome, gorgeous, kick-ass women that like have our shit together. Get a divorce already. Move on.
Just sign the paper. That's amazing.
Okay, well, we're out of time. This is so much like, oh my God, I could talk to you forever, but please tell everyone where they can find you and listen to your podcast.
Yeah, so my podcast is Cosmic Body Podcast. And you can also find me on Instagram at I am Danielle Paige, and that's Paige. And then also my website has everything. It's daniellepage.com.
And I will list everything
Thank you.
on here. And thank you so much for taking the time and talking.
Thank you so much. I love talking to you. You're hysterical.
Oh
I feel like if I was in LA, I feel like we'd have such a fun like dinner night.
Yes, we would. Well, when the world opens up again and we can do it, whether you're there or here, we will make that happen because I travel a lot. So we'll make it happen. Thank you guys for listening. This is Don't Call Me Ma'am, and I'm Jodi Miller. Don't fucking call me ma'am.